Hey, what's up guys, Will here for GSM Arena. Motorola is well known for its Moto G series, and one of the most interesting of these phones to come out lately is the Moto G8 Power. Its signature feature is a giant battery that's supposed to last for days. But what else does it have going for it? Let's find out in our Moto G8 Power review. The Moto G8 Power is built, as many mid-range phones are, out of thick plastic. Ours is in Capri Blue, and the finish is quite nice looking, with some subtle stripes underneath. The phone is advertised as splash resistant, and although there isn't an official IP rating, its internals are protected by a water-repellent nano coating. Still, I wouldn't take it for a swim. Motorola didn't design the G8 Power to be thin and lightweight. It's beefy and solid, thanks to a large 5000 mAh battery inside. It does have some curves to it though, which helps it not to feel too bulky. While we're on the subject of the battery, let's go over just how good the battery life actually is. Moto claims up to 3 days of normal usage, which may not be far off. The phone scored an awesome endurance rating of 136 hours in our battery tests. As you might expect from such a large power pack, charging will take a while, even with a bundled 18-watt fast charger. We were able to charge from 0 to only 29% in half an hour. So the screen on time here is excellent, but how is the screen itself? It's a 6.4-inch IPS LCD with a 1080p resolution and tall aspect ratio. At the top, as is the trend these days, you'll find a punch hole cutout for the selfie camera. Unfortunately, the backlighting is uneven around this cutout, which you will notice if there's a light backdrop on the screen. But other than that, this is a solid display. Contrast is excellent, with decent blacks, and brightness is great. Up to 500 nits normally and up to 740 nits in bright conditions with auto mode on. Colors are punchy, though admittedly not the most accurate. Not only is the visual experience pretty nice, but the G8 Power does a great job audio-wise as well. It has a stereo speaker setup with the earpiece doubling as the second speaker. The speakers are well balanced and scored a very good mark in our loudness test. Quality is good too, with great mids, though bass is lacking. The phone also has a regular 3.5mm audio jack, so plugging in standard headphones won't be an issue. Now let's talk about performance, and this is where we start to see some chinks in the G8 Power's armor. The phone runs on a Snapdragon 665 chipset, which is starting to look outdated in 2020. The G8 Power's CPU and GPU scores fall behind similarly priced devices that run on Snapdragon 700 series chips. Performance is still decent, but we were surprised to see the occasional hiccup, even when just browsing the interface. Even though the Moto G8 Power isn't part of the Android One program like its Moto One cousins, its UI is a near-stock version of Android 10. Navigation is done via a bar at the bottom, though its motions are quite similar to what we're used to. If you want, you can go back to on-screen navigation keys. Pretty much all of the functions are provided by Google's apps, but there are a few proprietary Moto functions, such as more advanced gesture controls, or a notification display which will activate when you pick up the phone. Waking up and unlocking the G8 Power is hassle-free, with the fingerprint scanner located on the back. It's always on, fast, and reliable. Unfortunately, you can only get 64 gigs of onboard storage, which could run out fast. Thankfully, it is expandable via the hybrid SIM slot. Now let's move on to the G8 Power's quad camera setup. There's a 16-megapixel main cam, an 8-megapixel ultra-wide, an 8-megapixel telephoto cam, and a 2-megapixel macro camera. In daylight, 16-megapixel photos from the main cam are okay, but not up to par with the competition. There's nice contrast and wide dynamic range, is true, but the resolve detail is mediocre and there is visible noise. The 8-megapixel telephoto takes 16-megapixel zoomed shots by default, which is strange. These aren't very good. Again, you get decent contrast and dynamic range, but there's poor detail, and to make up for that upscaling, the images seem to have been over-sharpened. The zoom lens is also the one taking portraits, and they are saved in the proper 8-megapixel resolution. The photos have good detail, but the separation is not good. You can often see blurred edges around the subject. 8-megapixel images from the ultra-wide camera photos are again poor in detail, and the rendition is noticeably different than that of the main camera. The 2-megapixel macro cam is okay as far as these sort of shooters go. It has autofocus, so you generally get sharp enough images. They aren't that contrasty, but they have good enough detail. In low light, unfortunately, the quality of the main cam's photos continues to unimpress. These are poor in detail and noisy, with limited dynamic range and washed out colors. And unlike the Moto G8 Plus, there isn't a night mode available here. The telephoto camera won't take pictures when it's too dark. Instead, you'll be getting a poor quality digital zoom. And as you'd expect, quality from the ultra-wide camera at night is a lot lower than that of the main camera. The Moto G8 Power has a 16-megapixel quad-Bayer selfie camera. You get 4-megapixel photos that have good colors and contrast. Detail is mediocre though, and dynamic range is limited. Portraits are possible with this camera, and they aren't bad. The subject separation isn't perfect, but we've seen much worse. Videos can be recorded with the main camera in up to 4K at 30 FPS. These videos have good color saturation and nice contrast, and the dynamic range isn't bad. However, the detail level is poor. While you can't shoot through the telephoto cam, you can with the ultra-wide, but just at 1080p. These are just not good, with low detail and a strange color rendition. And electronic stabilization is available for both cams, but only in 1080p at 30 FPS, and it's effective at smoothing things out. So that's the Moto G8 Power. You get a water-resistant and good-looking design, a large bright LCD screen, loud stereo speakers, and incredible battery life. As far as these features go, it's hard to find a complaint. However, the rest of the package is sort of disappointing. Okay, the chipset performance isn't that bad, but you can get much better for this price. And those quad cameras are just a letdown. It's exciting to see such a versatile setup until you realize that none of the cameras are good. Maybe the macro cam is decent, but that's it. Overall, the G8 Power is not a bad phone. If you don't care about the cameras and just want some good battery life, you might be satisfied. But anyone looking for a competitive mid-ranger can certainly find better elsewhere. Thanks for watching guys, stay safe and see you on the next one.